Imagine this. The three wise men, also called the Magi, finally reach Bethlehem, present their famous gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh to baby Jesus. And then, instead of going home like normal people, they just keep walking. No stopping, no breaks, just step after step forever. Sounds like a weird biblical Forrest Gump, right? But what would actually happen if they just never stopped walking? How far would they get? Could they walk around the world? And what strange things would happen along the way? First, let's figure out how fast they were probably walking. These guys were traveling by camel, but let's assume they ditched the camels after Bethlehem and just went on foot. A comfortable walking speed for a human is about 3 miles per hour, or 5 kilometers per hour. If they walked 8 hours a day, they'd cover roughly 24 miles, or 40 kilometers. But the question says they never stop walking. That means 24 hours a day, no breaks. That's 72 miles, or about 115 kilometers every single day, which is physically impossible. By the way, the world record for nonstop walking without sleep is around 100 miles in 24 hours, and the person who did that collapsed immediately after. Our wise men wouldn't last more than a day before passing out in a dusty heap, but okay, let's give them a magical boost. Maybe the baby Jesus gave them divine stamina as a parting gift. They never get tired, never need to eat or sleep, and their sandals never wear out. Basically, they're the walking version of the Energizer Bunny. Now it gets interesting. At 72 miles per day in just 1 year, they'd cover 26,280 miles, or 42,300 kilometers. The circumference of the Earth at the equator is about 24,900 miles. That means in only 350 days, they'd have walked all the way around the planet once. Picture this, the Magi, robes flowing, just striding past confused villagers, across deserts, over mountains, and somehow walking right over the ocean floor while fish scatter around their ankles. 1 year later, they'd stroll right back into Bethlehem like, oh, hey, remember us? While everyone else has aged a year and they look exactly the same. But what if they kept going? After 10 years, they'd have walked 262,800 miles. That's more than the distance from Earth to the moon, not vertically. Of course they're walking around the surface, but if you stretch their path into space, they could have walked to the moon and back, then done a victory lap around the block. Along the way, they'd unintentionally rewrite history. Imagine them trudging through ancient Rome, totally ignoring the emperor's parade, or accidentally stomping through the construction of the Great Wall of China. By year 500, they'd have been cited by so many cultures that legends about the eternal walkers would spread like wildfire. Maybe they'd even inspire myths about ghosts or wandering prophets. But let's think bigger. If they never stop, eventually they'll hit some obstacles. Oceans, no problem. Our magic walkers just stroll along the seafloor like underwater tourists. Volcanoes, they casually walk across lava, their sandals glowing like marshmallows in a campfire. The real issue is tectonic plates. Continents move at about 2 inches per year. After thousands of years, coastlines and mountains shift. Imagine a Magi suddenly finding himself walking uphill as a new mountain slowly rises under his feet. And then there's the whole spinning planet thing. The Earth rotates at about 1,000 miles per hour at the equator. If they keep walking east, they're basically chasing the sunrise forever. If they walk west, they'll be stuck in an endless sunset. Eventually, people might start worshiping them as gods who control time. But here's the craziest part. What if they walked for 2,000 years, all the way to today? Let's do the math. 2,000 years times 26,280 miles per year equals about 52 million miles. That's more than half the distance between Earth and Mars at its closest approach. They wouldn't just have circled the Earth countless times, they'd have worn literal grooves into the crust. By now, there might be a deep canyon wrapping around the planet like a cosmic belt. Imagine looking at a satellite map and seeing a perfect line carved across deserts, forests, and cities. At some point, governments would get involved. Modern airports would freak out as three mysterious robed figures casually walked across runways, ignoring air traffic controllers yelling into radios. Someone would definitely try to capture them for scientific study, but good luck catching up with people who never stop moving. Eventually, humanity might build monuments to mark their path. The Great Magi Trail could become a world wonder, like the Appalachian Trail, but infinitely more hardcore. Hikers would brag about walking a tiny fraction of the distance the Magi covered before collapsing in exhaustion. But here's a twist. If they've been walking for 2 millennia, they've also been a perfect witness to all of history. They would have seen empires rise and fall, witnessed every major event, and walked past every single war. If they ever decided to stop and talk, they'd basically have the ultimate history podcast inside their heads. So what happens if they finally stop today? Well, they'd probably just blink, look around, and say, wow, we missed a lot. Meanwhile, historians everywhere would lose their minds trying to record everything they know. In the end, this silly thought experiment reminds us how small the world can feel when you think about movement and time. Walking forever sounds impossible, but in just a single lifetime, you could walk far enough to change your perspective on the entire planet. So, what do you think? If you could walk endlessly like the wise men, where would you go first? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this little journey, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss our next What If adventure.